The 32X has often been seen as the beginning of the end for Sega and the hardware industries. Released just 6 months before the Saturn in North America, it was an absolute failure. Electronic Arts and 3DO founder Trip Hawkins said it best. Everyone knows 32X is a band-aid. It's not a next-generation system. It's fairly expensive, it's not particularly high performance, it's hard to program for, and it's not compatible with the Saturn. Ouch. Like most retro gamers who have something wrong with them, I've always dreamed of having one. But let me tell you, don't do it. It's too much effort for not enough games. But if you're still unconvinced, I'd like to share the knowledge that I've gained going down this path to hell. The first thing that you'll need to know is that there are 2 revisions of the 32X, the MK84000 and the MK84000A. Unless you already have a Sega CD hooked up, or are willing to buy or make a dongle that grounds the expansion slot for the Sega CD, you want the MK84000A. If you don't have these pins grounded and you use the regular 84000 model, the 32X won't work. Now that you have a 32X, I'm gonna rip off the band-aid. I wouldn't recommend using the Mega SG. There's exactly one company that makes a cable from the analog DAC to the 32X, and even if you get it going, you're going to have a analog output. I don't know why, but for my cable, I can't get the picture to stay still. It looks really bad. Overall, it's just a lot easier to run on a regular Genesis. With that out of the way, you will need to both power the 32X and get the video signal from the original Genesis. The 32X takes a Model 2 power style connector, so any brick that you have will work. However, I would recommend getting a cable like this that can power the whole tower of power with just 1 cord in your surge protector instead of 3 massive wall warts. The next thing that you will need is the link cable. Now, if you're running a Model 1 Genesis, it uses a different connector than the Model 2. But if you have a Model 2 Genesis, it might look something like this. Now, it is important to note that if you buy these off of Amazon, you need to check to see if there are 9 pins. The 9th pin, the one right here, is actually a power pin, so you will not be able to power off your Genesis if it is connected, and you could possibly damage your 32X, but this is nothing that a little love from a needle nose pliers cannot solve. Now that you have the cable set up, you need to connect it to the output from the Sega Genesis and into the video in slot of the 32X. Lastly, you will need a video cable. The 32X can use any cable that a Genesis 2 does. I personally am using the HD Retrovision Genesis cables, which look amazing. And then it will look something like this once you have everything hooked up. If you're really into Genesis games, you probably also have a EverDrive or a Mega SD. Both of these support 32X games, but there is some weirdness with 32X CD games, so you probably won't get to play the 6 of those. So what happens if you have everything set up and you get a black screen, or you just get the "this is licensed by Sega"? Well, there are usually 2 main issues: the ribbon cables that connect the cartridge part to the mushroom part, and the capacitors. Before you go crazy and disassemble the 32X, make sure that the cartridge slot is clean. Just clean it with a Q-tip and some isopropyl alcohol. Also, make sure that the 32X is completely seated into the cartridge port. If both of those do not solve the issue, then you will need to disassemble the 32X. There are 4 screws that use a standard Phillips head screwdriver that you will need to remove. Once you have that bit done, then you will need to remove the RF shield. Depending on your revision, there will be either 4 or 8 screws, but you just unscrew them and then you will have a clean look at the board. Now you'll be able to see the ribbon cables. So make sure that they're both seated in. Also, it wouldn't hurt to go ahead and take them out and rub with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol once again to make sure they are clean. Now, if you have damage to those, like was the case in one of mine, you will need to get a replacement. The other thing to look out for on the board is bulging capacitors. So if you look at any of these and they look like they're starting to bulge, you probably have a bad capacitor and you will need to fix it. It is a very simple solder job, but I didn't have to do this for mine. Also, don't be afraid if there's a bunch of wires everywhere. They really rush these things out, and there were several errors in the board design, so that is actually completely normal. And that's pretty much it. If you guys ever want to see 32X games live, maybe stop by my Twitch stream. Otherwise, I'll see you later.